Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene is under fire from members of even her own party for making an incredibly awful comparison during an interview on a conservative podcast for the weekend. In fact, let's take a look at the first video here.
This woman is mentally ill. You know, we can look back in a time in history where people were told to wear a gold star, and they were definitely treated like second-class citizens, so much so that they were put in trains and taken to gas chambers in Nazi Germany. And this is exactly the type of abuse that Nancy Pelosi is talking about.
I just want to note the irony of Marjorie Taylor Greene using the words, "This woman is mentally ill." Okay. Are you sure you want to go there? I mean, because, you know, that could be considered to be projection. Just a little bit. But on the substance of it, of course, how is this even close to Nazi Germany? I mean, aside from her party, you know, being more or less totally and completely fine with white nationalists and white supremacists, this is the same woman who has been on the record spreading anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. You know, the Jewish space lasers that supposedly started the wildfires in California. So this woman's got some damn nerve making those comparisons. And by the way, I don't know if I really shouldn't even have to say stuff like this, but no, wearing masks, mask mandates to go into grocery stores, and this applies to everybody, they're not the same as having to wear a gold star on your shirt. I mean, here's the thing. We've had over 500,000 Americans that have died as a result of COVID-19. To which for a long time, masks were the only defense that we had. Masks, social distancing, and like half-assed lockdowns. Okay. Now we happen to have vaccines, which is wonderful. Unfortunately, you got a lot of Republicans in the, you know, basically the party of QAnon now, which are refusing to take the vaccines, which means we're going to have to wear masks for longer. That's, of course, if you're not vaccinated at all. Although there are people who are fully vaccinated that are not giving up their masks, and there's a reason why. It's because people like Marjorie Taylor Greene. So, just a complete and utter insanity. So now, those were saying, I think that was on Friday, it was last week. And so over the weekend, she got a lot of pushback. For one, Jewish groups were quick to condemn her remarks. Here's what the American Jewish Congress said in a tweet. You can never compare health-related restrictions with yellow-starred gas chambers and other Nazi atrocities. Such comparisons demean the Holocaust and contaminate American political speech. Well, that's just at least one thing that Marjorie Taylor Greene contaminates. And the other thing would be, of course, the House chambers, which we don't know if she's vaccinated. I think all the Democrats are, but yet we don't know the status of Republicans, and most of them are pretty ancient. And so they would be the ones to need the vaccine. But of course, a few Democrats die from COVID-19 or get sick or whatever, because of the Republicans, as Rand Paul had proven, they're not going to care at all. They're not going to care at all. So now, one more quote here from the American Jewish Congress. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene must immediately retract and apologize. Now, what do you think the odds are there on that one? Not very good. In fact, after she received criticism, she actually went and doubled down on Sunday.
And so I stand by all of my statements. I said nothing wrong. And I think any rational Jewish person didn't like what happened in Nazi Germany, and any rational Jewish person doesn't like what's happening with overbearing mask mandates and overbearing vaccine policies.
Do you understand, though, why some would be upset and offended by the comment?
Well, do you understand how people feel about being forced to wear masks or being forced to have to take a vaccine or even have to say that whether they've taken it or not? These are just things that shouldn't be happening in America. This is a free country, and it's just ridiculous to have these kind of conversations.
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous to have this conversation. Yeah. Imagine turning this around and making yourself into a victim. She said something deeply anti-Semitic and then turns around and says, I can't, well, now you know how it feels when you're forced to wear a mask. No. Okay. Let me just say this as a non-Jewish person, okay? One non-Jewish person to Marjorie Taylor Greene. I hope you're listening, Marjorie. Maybe we shouldn't be speaking on behalf of Jewish people. I mean, for one, it should be fairly obvious that you shouldn't speak for a group if you're not part of the group. That said, especially when that particular group keeps getting set up to be a scapegoat for other countries' political problems. Jewish people have been traditionally set up to be the scapegoat for many government's problems around the world. And so there's that. Not only that, but of course, the other issue for speaking for a group that you're not a part of is that no group is a monolith. Jewish people aren't a monolith. Black people aren't a monolith. White people aren't a monolith. And so that's another problem for speaking for other people, and you probably shouldn't do it. Look, the fact is, mass mandates and vaccines are there for safety. Everybody's health and safety. Conservative, liberal, black, white, doesn't matter to the virus. Doesn't discriminate. Doesn't really care who it infects. Now, that said, there's a disproportionate impact on who it tends to impact the most when people get sick. And you have Black and Latino communities that end up getting hit harder, mainly because of density of cities, as well as workplaces like meatpacking plants have been centers of outbreaks because generally they tend to pay people lower wages and refuse to protect their workers. And so those workers are considered essentially to be disposable in our society. The virus doesn't discriminate, but our society and our healthcare system sure does. All right, sure does. All right, more pushback. Representative Liz Cheney chimed in. Here's what she said about Greene's comments. Quote, "This is evil lunacy." I mean, it's hard to disagree with that one. Right on the nose. Representative, this is another Republican, Adam Kinzinger, tweeted this: "Absolute sickness." Again, 100%. Democrats also, by the way, chimed in, but I have one more Republican in a video here. But first, Democratic Representative Bill Pascrell of New Jersey and David Cicilline of Rhode Island tweeted their criticism as well. As anti-Semitic violence rises, it is disgusting that a Republican member of Congress is comparing mass mandates to the Holocaust. True. Cicilline also called Greene, quote, "a troubled person who was unfit to serve in Congress." True. And then that video that I mentioned, this is Congressman Peter Meyer out of Michigan with an actually pretty strong condemnation.
Any comparisons to the Holocaust, it's beyond reprehensible. This is, I don't even have words to describe how disappointing it is to see this hyperbolic speech that frankly amps up and plays into a lot of the anti-Semitism that we've been seeing in our society today. Vicious attacks on the streets of New York and in Los Angeles that should be, and I do condemn that in the strongest terms. There is no excuse for that. But the broader message that, and to your point of not even wanting to bring it up, I mean, the broadest challenge right now is that that's where the oxygen is. It's in the most outlandish, the most far-fetched, the most attention-seeking message, right? We should be talking about policies. We should be talking about the growing climate solutions. We should be talking about all of the things that will have a tangible impact on this country, on where our cybersecurity capabilities are today, on how we are going to remain competitive and outlast and be the world victors in our global competition against China, right? That's not where our conversation is. It gets distracted by personalities. It gets distracted by everything that is ultimately of very little substance, but has an influence on the body politic.
All right, so I don't agree a lot, I'm assuming, with Peter Meyer. Again, he's a Republican, but there he makes a lot of sense there in much of what he says. Yeah, you should talk about policy. Now, I think that's actually kind of a winner for progressives when Republicans talk about policy, because their policies are mainly tax cuts for the rich, deregulation, more restrictions on abortion. And so, yeah, please go and talk about that. The thing is, they don't talk about that because generally what grabs the oxygen in the room, of course, is people like Marjorie Taylor Greene spewing insane conspiracy theories. They are the party of conspiracy theories, but not only that, because they don't have popular policies. And so, I mean, the Republican Party right now, and I've got an amazing new poll out here, Ipsos Reuters, 61% of Republicans believe the election was stolen from Donald Trump. So they believe in the big lie. They believe that 53% of Republicans believe that Donald Trump is the true president. Like right now. This is the world, this is the reality that Republicans live in right now. It's not objective reality. They don't live in the real world anymore. And so, of course, they're not talking about policy. Of course, they're talking about this insanity. 40% of the base, 40% of the country has basically went insane. They, by and large, voted for people like Greene, voted for people like Donald Trump, Jim Jordan, Matt Gaetz. They watch Newsmax and OAN and Fox News and Tucker Carlson. This is who they are. This is who they, by the way, they've been this way for a long, long time. But really, it's just been hidden under that mask. Now the mask is gone. Ripped it right off. They couldn't wait to rip it off and finally show the world just how insane they are. And, well, let me tell you, when somebody shows you who they really are, I don't know, maybe you ought to believe them. All right. She has nothing else to do with their time. She's stripped of committees, so she just goes on TV and talks smack. And raises the most money out of all Republicans, by the way. And so that's something that it really kind of shows you where the party's at. Yeah, she doesn't do anything. She doesn't work. She just talks shit. And then she goes and harasses AOC and other Congress people. Because that's what Republicans want them to do. Republicans don't want policy. They don't want work. They don't want good things to happen. What they want is for someone to own the libs. They want them to own the libs. And again, I'm not saying Peter Meyer. He's one of the few Republicans that are like, no, this is completely crazy. I don't want to be a part of this. But understand, right now, the majority of who's left in the Republican Party, they haven't left already. They're about going to, because this is what they're all about now. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like and share with your friends. You can subscribe and help out the channel by becoming a patron. It's patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf, or you can become a channel member as well by hitting the join button below.